The room feels different tonight. Not darker. Not louder. Just, aware. As if something unseen has been watching the quiet corners of your life. The unpaid bills. The silent prayers. The nights you pretended you were okay. And then, without warning, a shift. A presence that does not enter through doors or windows, but through conviction. Archangel Michael speaks. Not with panic. Not with fear. But with authority. I am not whispering to you. I am commanding your attention. What you are about to hear is not coincidence. You pause. Because deep down, you know this message is about you. A millionaire's shock. Somewhere, in a place you've never seen, someone of great influence, someone with resources beyond your imagination, was confronted with a vision. Not of their own success. Not of their own empire. But of you. Your condition. Your exhaustion. Your perseverance. They saw the struggle you hide from others. And they were shaken. Because what they saw was not weakness. They saw potential buried under pressure. They saw faith that refused to die. They saw someone who kept going even when there was no applause. Archangel Michael's voice grows stronger. Heaven allowed them to see what others ignored. And they are waiting. But you must not ignore the moment. This is not about random luck. It is about alignment. There are moments when doors open quietly. And if you hesitate, they close just as silently. Why 10 seconds matter? Not because of fear. Not because of threat. But because opportunity requires awareness. You've been conditioned to think nothing ever changes. So when something actually begins to shift, you doubt it. You scroll past it. You dismiss it. And that, more than poverty, has been your greatest obstacle. Michael's presence feels firm now. Your condition is not permanent. But your response determines your transition. This is about readiness. A millionaire may be prepared to help. A blessing may be prepared to arrive. But if you refuse to believe you are worthy, you will unconsciously reject what was meant for you. The hidden principle. There is a law older than currency. Older than banks. Older than systems. It is the law of response. When heaven signals movement, you move. When awareness awakens, you lean in. When hope flickers, you protect it. This is not about chasing wealth. It is about recognizing when your season begins to change. The real question. Are you ready to stop identifying as the one who struggles? Are you ready to accept that someone, somewhere, was moved because of your resilience? Are you ready to believe that your story is not ending in lack? Archangel Michael does not beg. He declares. Your humility was seen. Your endurance was recorded. Your time is approaching. But you must respond with faith, not doubt. Pause here. Before you continue, I want you to anchor yourself. Because this is not just a story. It is about identity. Comment this word. Worthy. Comment worthy because you must first believe you deserve change before change can recognize you. And if you feel led, not pressured, not forced, but led. If you see a QR code on the screen, or a link in the description or comments, you may choose to follow it as a symbolic act of planting a seed of faith for your family's future, an intentional gesture of hope, gratitude, and trust that better days are ahead. Not out of fear. Not out of panic. But as a declaration that you believe your household is moving into protection, provision, and possibility. Act only from peace. Never from pressure. This is only the beginning. If you want the next chapter, say so. And we continue. Part 2, the transfer that begins in the unseen. Something is moving behind the curtain of your ordinary life. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But deliberately. While you were worrying about tomorrow. While you were calculating what you don't have. While you were trying to stretch what barely stretches. A conversation was taking place that did not involve fear. It involved strategy. And this time, it was not yours. The presence returns. Stronger. Steadier. Not emotional, authoritative. Archangel Michael speaks again. You believe your condition has defined you. But your condition was only revealing you. Pause there. Because that line alone changes everything. You thought your lack was proof you were forgotten. Heaven saw it as proof you were disciplined. You thought your struggle meant you were behind. It was building the character required to sustain what is coming. The millionaire's hesitation. The person who saw your condition, the one moved unexpectedly, did not immediately act. They questioned it. They tried to dismiss the impression. Why would they care about someone they've never met? Why would your life cross their awareness? Why would your name surface in their heart? And yet it did. Again. And again. And again. Because this is not random sympathy. It is alignment. Michael's voice grows firm. Provision flows where purpose is prepared. And your preparation has not gone unnoticed. But here is the deeper truth. Blessings do not force entry. They wait for agreement. If you have convinced yourself that nothing ever works out for you. If you have accepted struggle as your identity. If you have made peace with limitation. Then when help appears, you will unconsciously sabotage it. That is why this moment matters. Why you must be alert. Not because something will be taken from you. But because something is trying to reach you. You have been trained by disappointment to expect nothing. And expectation shapes reception. The shift begins the moment you say, maybe this time is different. Archangel Michael declares, I do not order you from fear. I order you into awareness. Your delay has cost you before. Do not repeat that pattern. This is about breaking mental poverty before financial poverty breaks. The millionaire who was stirred. They are not your savior. They are a vessel. And vessels move when pathways are clear. The hidden transfer. There are transfers that happen quietly. Connections that begin invisibly. Doors that unlock without noise. But they require attention. You do not need to beg. You do not need to chase. You need to respond. That is the difference. You are not being called to desperation. You are being called to readiness. Michael's presence intensifies. Stop rehearsing defeat. Stop predicting disappointment. Stop assuming lack. Your narrative is changing. And narratives shift first internally. Then externally. What this really means. The 10 seconds are symbolic. They represent decisiveness. Not panic. Not fear. But clarity. You have been slow to believe in yourself. Slow to expect breakthrough. Slow to release the identity of struggle. This is the moment that tests whether you still see yourself as the one who barely survives. Or the one who is transitioning. The millionaire's shock was not about pity. It was about recognition. Recognition of resilience. Recognition of discipline. Recognition of unseen faithfulness. A question you must answer. If help actually appeared, would you believe it? Or would you doubt it? If opportunity knocked, would you open? Or would you hesitate? Archangel Michael's voice is unwavering. Your life does not change because money arrives. It changes because you finally believe change is possible. That belief unlocks everything else. Anchor this now. Before you scroll. Before you doubt. Before you dismiss. Comment this word. Align. Comment align because transformation begins when your mindset aligns with the breakthrough you've been praying for. And if you choose, not from pressure, not from fear, but from conviction. If there is a QR code on the screen or a link in the comments or description, you may follow it as a personal declaration that you are planting a seed of intention for your household's future, a symbolic step of faith, gratitude, and expectation for stability, provision, and protection. Let it be an act of belief. Not urgency. Not obligation. But alignment. This movement is not finished. If you want the next part, say so. And we continue deeper. Part 3, the moment you stop calling yourself broke. Listen carefully. Because this is where most people turn away. Not because the message isn't powerful. But because it starts confronting identity. You've said it before. I'm just trying to survive. It is what it is. Maybe this is my lot in life. And every time you repeated those phrases, you unknowingly reinforced the walls around you. But tonight, something different is happening. Archangel Michael does not return with softness this time. He returns with correction. Your poverty was a season. You turned it into a name. Let that settle. You didn't just experience struggle. You accepted it as permanent. And heaven cannot deliver abundance to someone who has made peace with limitation. The real shock. The millionaire who saw your condition. They were not shocked because you were poor. They were shocked because you were enduring. Because most people collapse under half the pressure you've carried quietly. You held your family together. You kept showing up. You didn't broadcast your pain. And that resilience triggered attention. Not random attention. Divine orchestration. Michael's presence becomes precise. Provision seeks stability. Wealth seeks wisdom. And character attracts capacity. This is not about lottery thinking. It is about positioning. You have been positioned through hardship. Refined through disappointment. Strengthened through delay. And now, the system is shifting. Why 10 seconds feels so urgent? Because transition is uncomfortable. You know how to operate in lack. You've learned to budget scarcity. You've mastered stretching little into enough. But abundance? That feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar territory makes people retreat. That is the test. Not money. Identity. Are you still the one who expects nothing? Or are you becoming the one who prepares for increase? The millionaire is waiting, but not forever. Opportunities do not chase endlessly. They respond to readiness. And readiness is not noise. It is quiet belief. It is silent expectation. It is calm certainty that says, my life will not remain like this. Archangel Michael's voice carries authority now. Do not miss this because you are comfortable with struggle. Comfort and limitation is the last chain to break. You have broken many chains. Fear. Rejection. Self-doubt. But comfort with lack. That one hides. And tonight it is being exposed. A hidden principle most people ignore. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you tolerate. If you tolerate small thinking, small results remain. If you tolerate the identity of struggle, struggle lingers. But the moment you shift tolerance, reality begins adjusting. This is why this message feels intense. It is not pressuring you. It is awakening you. The shift begins internally. Imagine for a moment. Not extravagant wealth. Not fantasy success. Just relief. Bills paid. Stress lowered. Family secure. Breathing easier. Now ask yourself honestly. Why does that feel distant? Because you trained yourself not to expect it. And that training ends here. Michael's declaration cuts through hesitation. You were never created to survive endlessly. You were built to build. Your season of barely making it has taught you management. Your season of delay has taught you patience. Your season of endurance has taught you discipline. And discipline sustains what others lose. This is the turning point. Not because money appears instantly, but because you stop shrinking your expectation. The millionaire's shock was not coincidence. It was confirmation. Your story is not invisible. Your condition was seen. And when heaven allows visibility, movement follows. Decide who you are now. Are you still the one who says, maybe next year? Or are you becoming the one who says, this changes now? Archangel Michael speaks firmly. The door is not locked. Your hesitation is. This is the internal breakthrough before the external one. And it is powerful. Anchor this transformation. Before you move on. Before doubt whispers. Before old thoughts return. Comment this word. Rise. Comment rise because you are no longer identifying with the ground level of survival, you are stepping into elevation. And if you feel moved, not pressured, not manipulated, but sincerely led. If you notice a QR code on the screen or a link placed in the description or comments, you may choose to follow it as a symbolic act of planting a seed of faith for your household's future, a voluntary gesture of gratitude, intention, and alignment with protection, provision, and progress. Let it be your personal declaration that your family's story is not defined by lack. Act only from peace. Never from fear. This shift is accelerating. If you are ready for the next part, say so. And we go even deeper. Part 4, the decision that activates the shift. Something subtle just changed. Not outside. Inside. You felt it. A small resistance. A quiet voice that said, "This sounds good, but nothing ever changes for me." That voice? That has been the real barrier. Not the bank account. Not the system. Not the economy. The belief that you are destined to struggle quietly. And tonight, that belief is being confronted directly. Archangel Michael does not raise his voice. He steadies it. You have survived long enough. Now you must decide whether you will step forward. Because here is the truth most people never hear. There are moments in life where provision begins moving toward you. But if you are still mentally positioned in lack, you will not recognize it. You will call it coincidence. You will call it unrealistic. You will call it too good to be true. And it will pass. The millionaire's perspective. Let's look at this clearly. The person who saw your condition. They were not searching for someone to rescue. They were confronted with your resilience. They were confronted with your endurance. They were confronted with the contrast between your potential and your circumstances. And that tension created movement. Because influence does not move for noise. It moves for stability. It moves for discipline. It moves for someone who will not waste opportunity. Archangel Michael declares. Heaven does not expose your condition for humiliation. It exposes it for intervention. That line matters. You were not seen to be shamed. You were seen to be shifted. Why urgency exists? Not because something will be stolen. Not because a clock is attacking you. But because hesitation has cost you before. Think honestly. How many times did you delay something that later you realized was important? How many times did doubt override opportunity? How many times did you convince yourself you weren't ready? That pattern ends when you become decisive. The 10 seconds is not about panic. It is about breaking hesitation. Because hesitation is comfortable. It feels safe. It protects you from disappointment. But it also blocks transition. The pattern break. You are not here by accident. You are here because something in you is tired of repeating the same cycle. The cycle of almost. The cycle of, maybe next time. The cycle of surviving instead of building. Archangel Michael's presence feels grounded now. If you continue rehearsing struggle, struggle will continue rehearsing you. That is the loop. And tonight is the interruption. A deeper truth. Let's go further. Your poor condition was not just financial. It was mental exhaustion. Emotional pressure. Carrying responsibility without relief. Smiling while calculating. Providing while stretching. The millionaire saw not just need. They saw capacity. And capacity attracts expansion. But expansion only flows toward those who step forward. The hidden fear. Be honest. Part of you is afraid that if something actually shifts, you won't know how to hold it. You are comfortable managing little. You are unfamiliar managing more. That unfamiliarity feels risky. But staying the same is also risk. Archangel Michael states clearly. You were not prepared to remain small. You were prepared to handle more. Preparation doesn't feel glamorous. It feels like delay. It feels like silence. It feels like wondering if anything is happening. But unseen preparation is still preparation. This is the identity shift. Stop calling yourself unlucky. Stop calling yourself behind. Stop calling yourself the one who never catches a break. You are the one who endured. You are the one who didn't collapse. You are the one who kept faith when evidence was thin. That changes your positioning completely. The shift does not start when money arrives. It starts when belief stabilizes. Now answer this honestly. If change truly began moving toward you, would you still doubt it? Or would you prepare for it? Archangel Michael's voice is steady. Your future is not blocked. Your hesitation is dissolving. Step into readiness. Readiness is calm. Not desperate. Not frantic. Calm expectation. Lock this in. Before your old thinking tries to return. Before doubt starts whispering. Comment this word. Prepared. Comment prepared because readiness activates transition. You are no longer waiting passively, you are positioning actively. And if you feel genuinely aligned, not pushed, not obligated, but aligned. If you see a QR code on the screen or a link placed in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of belief for your family's stability and future growth, a symbolic gesture of trust, gratitude, and forward movement. Let it represent intention. Not urgency. Not pressure. But alignment. This is building. And the next layer goes even deeper. If you are ready, say so. And we continue. Part 5, when your name moves into rooms you've never entered. Right now, something is happening that you cannot see. No announcement. No trumpet. No dramatic sign in the sky. Just movement. Quiet. Strategic. Intentional. You think your life is still. You think nothing has shifted. But influence is circulating your name in rooms you've never stepped into. And that is not coincidence. Archangel Michael's presence feels calm, but immovable, like a mountain that does not react to wind. While you were calculating survival, your resilience was being evaluated. Pause there. Because you've been measuring your life by what you lack. Heaven has been measuring you by how you handled it. And that difference changes everything. The room you cannot see. There is a conversation you are not present for. A thought that keeps returning to someone with capacity. A name that keeps resurfacing in a mind that holds resources. Not because you begged. Not because you broadcast. But because stability attracts stewardship. You thought your quiet endurance meant you were invisible. It meant you were credible. The millionaire was not shocked by your poverty. They were shocked by your perseverance. By the fact that someone with that little still operated with that much discipline. And discipline is rare. Archangel Michael speaks again. You are being tested for sustainability, not punished with delay. That reframes your entire story. Why you were not chosen earlier. You were not overlooked. You were being strengthened. If abundance had come 2 years ago, you would have managed it emotionally, not strategically. If opportunity had arrived during your most impatient season, you would have rushed it. Now, you think before acting. You calculate before committing. You observe before trusting. You were refined. And refinement is not glamorous, but it is necessary. The real battle was internal. Your greatest fight was not with money. It was with identity. Every time you saw someone else accelerate. Every time you felt behind. Every time comparison whispered. You had a choice. Collapse. Or continue. You continued. That continuation built something invisible. Resilience. And resilience attracts serious opportunity. The millionaire's awareness. The person who saw your condition did not see desperation. They saw foundation. They saw someone who would not misuse support. Someone who would not self-sabotage increase. Someone who understands value because they've lived without it. And that is rare. Archangel Michael declares. Provision searches for responsibility. Responsibility has been growing in you. You were not stuck. You were being structured. The urgency is not fear, it's alignment. This moment feels intense because you are at a pivot point. You are moving from survival thinking to stewardship thinking. From scarcity identity to expansion readiness. The shift does not feel loud. It feels serious. And seriousness is different from drama. Drama is chaotic. Seriousness is stable. You are not being asked to panic. You are being asked to position. Positioning changes everything. When you expect nothing, you prepare for nothing. When you expect increase, you prepare differently. You organize. You focus. You remove distraction. You reduce impulsiveness. You begin operating like someone who knows more is coming. Archangel Michael's voice is steady. Do not rehearse struggle anymore. Begin rehearsing stability. That sentence alone can shift your trajectory. A hard question. If support truly arrived, would you treat it as temporary luck? Or as the beginning of a new standard? Because this is not about receiving once. It is about sustaining differently. The millionaire's shock created movement. But your mindset determines continuation. You are not behind. You are aligned later than you expected. There's a difference. Being behind feels like failure. Being aligned feels like timing. And timing requires maturity. You have matured. You are not the same version of yourself who once doubted everything. You are steadier now. And steady people attract serious doors. Anchor this shift. Before the old narrative returns. Before comparison whispers again. Before impatience tries to take over. Comment this word. Position. Comment position because you are no longer waiting randomly, you are strategically placing yourself for the next level. And if you feel genuinely aligned, not pressured, not obligated, but internally ready. If you notice a QR code on the screen or a link placed in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary expression of planting a seed of intention for your household's future stability and protection. Let it symbolize readiness. Not urgency. Let it represent alignment. Not anxiety. Let it be a personal declaration that your family's story is moving from strain to structure. This is building into something greater. And the next part will reveal the turning mechanism behind the scenes. If you're ready, we continue. Part 6, the shift you don't see yet. Something has already begun. Not in your bank account. Not in your notifications. Not in your inbox. But in positioning. And positioning always comes before visible increase. Right now, your life may look exactly the same. Same environment. Same responsibilities. Same pressure. But internally, a pivot has occurred. Archangel Michael's presence does not arrive with volume this time. It arrives with certainty. You asked for change. But you were not prepared for the patience required before it. That sentence is uncomfortable. Because we pray for doors. But we rarely anticipate preparation. The hidden preparation phase. There is a phase nobody celebrates. It's quiet. It feels repetitive. It feels like nothing is happening. But it is the phase where capacity is built. You thought you were stuck. You were stabilizing. You thought nothing was moving. Your discipline was being observed. You thought you were invisible. You were being evaluated. Provision does not chase noise. It aligns with steadiness. And steadiness has been developing inside you. Why the millionaire was shocked. Not because you were poor. But because you were consistent. You did not quit. You did not collapse publicly. You did not abandon responsibility. You kept functioning. And that kind of quiet endurance is rare. Rare attracts attention. Archangel Michael speaks clearly. Your consistency is what opened this door. Not your complaints. Not your desperation. Your steadiness. That changes the narrative completely. The real transition is internal. You are no longer reacting emotionally to delay. You are thinking strategically. You are no longer chasing random solutions. You are observing patterns. You are no longer asking, why me? You are asking, what's next? That is maturity. And maturity attracts weighty opportunities. Not small ones. Serious ones. The turning mechanism. There is a shift that happens when someone stops identifying as the struggling one. It's subtle. But powerful. Your posture changes. Your decisions sharpen. Your energy stabilizes. You stop moving out of fear. You begin moving out of foresight. And that shift, not money, is what changes everything. Archangel Michael declares. You are not waiting for rescue. You are stepping into responsibility. That is the difference between temporary relief and sustainable change. Why urgency still matters. Not because something will disappear. But because hesitation is a habit. You've hesitated before. Delayed decisions. Second-guessed opportunities. Waited until it felt safe. And sometimes safety is just disguised fear. This moment is about decisiveness. Not panic. Decisiveness signals readiness. And readiness attracts momentum. What you must understand. You are not behind. You are emerging. Emergence does not feel dramatic. It feels serious. Focused. Grounded. You are no longer looking for miracles out of desperation. You are preparing for movement with intention. That difference is massive. The shift in standard. You are raising your internal standard. No more accepting barely enough. No more identifying with struggle as normal. No more tolerating cycles you've outgrown. Archangel Michael's tone is firm. Increase does not begin externally. It begins when you refuse to stay where you've stabilized too long. That is where you are. Not in lack. In transition. A harder question. If tomorrow looked slightly better, would you sabotage it with doubt? Or would you stabilize it with discipline? Because increase requires maintenance. And you have been trained in maintenance through hardship. That is why this timing matters. Anchor this level. Before old thinking tries to creep back in. Before comparison distracts you. Before impatience reappears. Comment this word. Emerge. Comment emerge because you are no longer in survival mode, you are in transition mode. And if you feel aligned, not pressured, not manipulated, but internally steady. If there is a QR code on the screen or a link in the description or comments, you may choose to follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of intention for your family's future stability and protection. Let it represent forward movement, not fear. Let it symbolize growth, not desperation. Let it be your declaration that your household is moving from strain into structure. This shift is not finished. The next part will expose the final barrier that has quietly held you back. If you're ready, we continue. Part 7, the last barrier you didn't know you were holding. This is where it becomes real. Not dramatic. Not exaggerated. Real. Because the biggest obstacle between you and stability was never money. It was interpretation. You interpreted delay as denial. You interpreted silence as rejection. You interpreted struggle as destiny. And once something is interpreted enough times, it becomes identity. Archangel Michael's presence feels closer now. Not towering. Not overwhelming. Focused. Direct. You were never abandoned. You were being calibrated. Calibration is uncomfortable. It stretches patience. It corrects timing. It refines impulsiveness. And it removes illusions. You were not being blocked. You were being aligned. The barrier was subtle. You thought your limitation was external. But the quiet barrier was internal doubt. Not loud doubt. Not dramatic doubt. Small doubt. The kind that whispers. Don't expect too much. Nothing big happens for people like us. Just be realistic. Realistic thinking has protected you from disappointment. But it has also protected you from expansion. And expansion requires exposure. Why this moment feels different? Because something inside you has shifted. You are no longer reacting emotionally to pressure. You are observing it strategically. You are no longer desperate for escape. You are steady in preparation. That shift alone changes your trajectory. Archangel Michael speaks firmly. Stability is forming around you. But stability requires courage to accept change. That line matters. Because many people pray for change. But when it begins forming, they retreat into familiarity. Familiar struggle feels safer than unfamiliar opportunity. The millionaire wasn't the miracle. They are a symbol. A symbol of movement. A symbol of connection. A symbol that your story is not invisible. But the true miracle is your maturity. You are not who you were 2 years ago. You think differently. You process differently. You decide differently. And that evolution has been noticed. Provision responds to growth. Not desperation. The hidden pattern that is breaking. For years, your cycle looked like this. Hope. Delay. Doubt. Reset. Repeat. Tonight, something interrupted that pattern. Not money. Awareness. And awareness changes repetition. Archangel Michael's voice steadies. Your story does not repeat anymore. It advances. Advancement is quiet. But permanent. The real wealth shift. True wealth begins in mental structure. When you stop tolerating chaos. When you stop romanticizing struggle. When you stop comparing timelines. When you stop shrinking your expectations to avoid disappointment. That is where transition begins. And that is where you are standing now. You are no longer the same. Your nervous system has adapted. Your patience has deepened. Your discipline has strengthened. Your faith has matured. These are not small upgrades. They are foundational. And foundations attract serious doors. Not temporary relief. Sustainable change. The final internal question. If real stability started forming around you, would you allow it? Or would you question it into collapse? Because the last barrier was never external resistance. It was internal hesitation. Archangel Michael declares, do not sabotage your elevation by clinging to old identity. You are not the struggling one. You are the stabilizing one. That difference changes everything. Anchor this permanently. Before old thinking tries to reassert control. Before doubt sneaks back in quietly. Before impatience tempts you to rush. Comment this word. Stabilize. Comment stabilize because you are no longer asking for random breakthrough, you are building permanent structure. And if you feel internally steady, not rushed, not pushed, but aligned. If there is a QR code on the screen or a link placed in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of structured intention for your family's long-term protection and growth. Let it represent commitment. Not emotion. Let it symbolize structure. Not impulse. Let it be your declaration that your household is moving from uncertainty into organized stability. The final layer is coming. And it is the most important one yet. If you're ready, we continue. Part 8, the transfer that begins when you stop apologizing for wanting more. There is something you have been doing quietly for years. Minimizing your own desire. Downplaying your own vision. Softening your own ambition so it doesn't look too much. You told yourself, I just want enough. I don't need much. I'm fine as long as we manage. But that was not humility. That was protection. Protection from disappointment. Protection from hope. Protection from believing something bigger was possible. And tonight, that protection is dissolving. Archangel Michael's presence is steady, not dramatic, not emotional, but direct. You do not dishonor heaven by wanting stability. You dishonor yourself by shrinking your expectation. That line is not about greed. It is about dignity. There is a difference between chasing excess and building security. You have not been asking for excess. You have been asking for relief. For breath. For stability. For your household to feel steady. And that is not wrong. The millionaire's awareness was not random. Let's speak plainly. People with capacity do not move for noise. They move for structure. When someone saw your condition, they did not see chaos. They saw discipline under pressure. They saw someone who could stretch little without complaining. They saw someone who did not crumble publicly. They saw sustainability. And sustainability attracts stewardship. Archangel Michael states clearly, the one who can manage little responsibly can manage more sustainably. Your struggle was not proof of incompetence. It was proof of endurance. And endurance is expensive. The real shift has already happened. You are no longer praying for rescue. You are preparing for responsibility. That difference is enormous. Rescue mentality waits passively. Responsibility mentality organizes proactively. You are organizing mentally now. You are thinking differently. You are evaluating patterns. You are recognizing what must change. That is maturity. And maturity magnetizes serious opportunity. Why you feel slightly unsettled? Because growth feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels unstable at first. You have spent years mastering survival. But survival is not your final identity. Stability is. And stability requires belief adjustment. Archangel Michael's voice steadies. Do not rehearse small thinking. You were not built for small capacity. You were refined through hardship. Not reduced by it. The pattern that ends here. You used to think. Maybe next year. Maybe when things improve. Maybe when I catch a break. But you are not waiting for breaks anymore. You are becoming the one who builds. That is the shift. You are not chasing miracles. You are aligning with structure. And structure is what sustains. The hidden fear you must release. There is still a quiet fear inside you. If things actually improve, what if I lose it? That fear kept you safe in stagnation. Because if nothing changes, nothing can be lost. But if nothing changes, nothing grows. Archangel Michael speaks firmly. You were trained by delay, but you are not defined by it. Delay sharpened you. It did not shrink you. The internal promotion. Something inside you has been promoted. Not externally yet. Internally. You think in terms of systems now. Not emotions. You evaluate sustainability. Not quick fixes. You prioritize structure. Not appearances. That internal promotion is why doors are preparing externally. What you must decide now. Will you continue minimizing your expectation? Or will you allow your standard to rise? Because your standard determines your ceiling. Archangel Michael declares. Raise your internal standard. External reality will adjust. That is not hype. It is psychological law. When identity shifts, behavior shifts. When behavior shifts, results follow. Lock this identity in. Before you retreat into comfort. Before you soften your ambition again. Before you minimize what you actually desire. Comment this word. Standard. Comment standard because you are no longer lowering your expectations to match your past, you are raising them to match your growth. And if you feel genuinely aligned, not rushed, not pressured, but ready. If you notice a QR code on the screen or a link in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of intention for your family's stability and protection. Let it represent elevation. Not emotion. Let it symbolize forward structure. Not impulse. Let it be your quiet declaration that your household will operate at a higher standard from this point forward. The final part will not be dramatic. It will be decisive. If you're ready, we continue. Part 9, when the door opens quietly, not loudly. This is the part most people misunderstand. They expect breakthrough to feel explosive. Loud. Obvious. Unmistakable. But the real door? It opens quietly. So quietly that only the attentive notice it. You are not waiting for fireworks. You are watching for alignment. And alignment rarely announces itself. Archangel Michael's presence does not feel intense now. It feels grounded. Certain. Controlled. You have been trained to survive noise. Now you must learn to recognize subtle movement. That sentence is crucial. Because the next level of your life will not arrive in chaos. It will arrive in clarity. The millionaire is not the focus. Let's reset the lens. The person who was stirred by your condition. They are not the miracle. They are evidence. Evidence that your life is not invisible. Evidence that your endurance carries weight. Evidence that stability attracts attention. But the real transfer is not financial first. It is positional. Your name is being discussed in spaces you do not see. Not because you begged. Not because you marketed yourself. But because your steadiness made you trustworthy. And trust is currency. Archangel Michael speaks calmly. Your reputation is being built quietly. And quiet reputation is stronger than loud ambition. That is why this moment feels serious. Not dramatic. Serious. Why the door did not open earlier. Because you were still reacting emotionally to pressure. Now you respond strategically. Because you were still defining yourself by struggle. Now you define yourself by structure. Because you were still expecting disappointment. Now you are preparing for stability. That difference changes timing. Timing is not punishment. Timing is readiness. The internal realization. You are not desperate anymore. You are deliberate. You are not frantic anymore. You are focused. You are not hoping randomly. You are aligning intentionally. That shift alone places you in a different category. Archangel Michael's voice is firm. When your posture changes, your position changes. Posture is internal. Position becomes external. The last hidden fear. There is still one small thought lingering. What if nothing happens? That thought protected you before. It kept your expectations low. It prevented emotional risk. But it also limited momentum. Tonight, that thought loses authority. Because you are no longer the version of yourself who collapses under disappointment. You are steady now. You understand process. And process builds sustainability. The real 10 seconds. The 10 seconds is symbolic. It represents decisiveness. It represents the end of hesitation. It represents the moment you stop rehearsing doubt. You do not need to rush. You need to choose. And choosing calmly is powerful. Archangel Michael declares. Do not ignore subtle movement. The door you prayed for will not knock loudly. You must be attentive. Not anxious. You are entering a different phase. This phase is not about survival. It is about stewardship. Not about barely managing. About building. Not about catching a break. About creating structure. You are transitioning from reactive living to intentional living. That is why this feels different. It is not hype. It is maturity. Decide your identity. Are you still the one who braces for struggle? Or are you the one who prepares for stability? Because the answer determines behavior. And behavior determines trajectory. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity. You have crossed the internal threshold. Now maintain it. Maintenance is not exciting. But it sustains. Seal this level. Before you fall back into old thinking. Before you minimize your growth. Before you soften your expectation. Comment this word. Maintain. Comment maintain because you are no longer chasing sudden change, you are sustaining steady elevation. And if you feel aligned, not pressured, not manipulated, but internally certain. If there is a QR code on the screen or a link placed in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of intention for your family's ongoing protection and structured growth. Let it represent consistency. Not urgency. Let it symbolize long-term alignment. Not emotional impulse. Let it be your declaration that your household is no longer operating in survival, but in sustainability. There is one final layer. And it is about permanence. If you are ready, we go there. Part 10, The Permanent Shift. This is not about excitement anymore. This is about permanence. Because temporary motivation fades. Temporary hope fades. Temporary belief fades. But permanent identity changes trajectory. You are not here to feel inspired for 5 minutes. You are here to decide who you are becoming. And that decision has weight. Archangel Michael's presence feels different now. Less urgent. More authoritative. Not pushing. Stabilizing. You have reached the place where repetition ends. What you choose now becomes your pattern. That is not dramatic language. It is structural language. Patterns determine destiny. The pattern you are breaking. For years, your internal pattern looked like this. Pressure, anxiety, short-term reaction, relief, repeat. You were always responding. Rarely designing. Now something has changed. You are no longer reacting emotionally. You are observing strategically. That subtle difference is massive. Because strategic thinking compounds. Emotional reacting drains. Archangel Michael says. The version of you who panicked under pressure no longer governs your decisions. That is growth. Quiet growth. But permanent growth. What the millionaire moment really represents. It represents confirmation. Confirmation that your life has weight. Confirmation that your resilience has value. Confirmation that you are not operating in obscurity. But more importantly, it represents the type of doors that open when someone becomes internally stable. The door is not random generosity. It is alignment between preparation and opportunity. And preparation has been happening inside you longer than you realized. Why permanence matters. Temporary excitement can attract something. Permanent maturity sustains it. You have reached maturity. You no longer chase every possibility. You evaluate. You no longer jump at every idea. You assess. You no longer expect overnight transformation. You respect process. That maturity is the real wealth shift. Money without maturity collapses. Maturity without money attracts structure. And structure attracts sustainability. The calm confidence phase. Notice something. You are not feeling desperate right now. You are not feeling frantic. You are not feeling pressured. You feel serious. That seriousness is confidence forming. Not loud confidence. Not ego. Grounded confidence. Archangel Michael declares. You are not hoping blindly anymore. You are positioning consciously. That difference is everything. The permanent identity. You are no longer the one who barely makes it. The one who expects struggle. The one who braces for disappointment. You are becoming the one who builds steadily. The one who thinks long-term. The one who protects structure. This identity does not fluctuate. It stabilizes. And stable identity produces stable outcomes. The real door. The real door is not financial. It is mental. And that door just opened. When you stop identifying with limitation. Limitation stops identifying with you. When you stop tolerating chaos. Chaos stops feeling normal. When you stop expecting struggle. Struggle loses authority. That is the shift. Not hype. Not fantasy. Structure. Decide permanence. Will you return to old thinking tomorrow? Or will you maintain this posture? Because permanence is chosen daily. Archangel Michael speaks one final time in this phase. What you stabilize internally will manifest externally. Do not shrink back. There is no countdown. No pressure. No fear. Only clarity. Anchor permanence. Before distractions return. Before routine dulls awareness. Before doubt tries to creep back in quietly. Comment this word. Establish. Comment establish because you are no longer experimenting with growth, you are establishing it. And if you feel internally aligned, calm, steady, intentional. If you notice a QR code on the screen or a link in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of long-term intention for your family's stability and protection. Let it represent permanence. Not emotion. Let it symbolize structured commitment. Not temporary inspiration. Let it be your quiet declaration that your household is operating from establishment, not survival. This is not the end. It is the beginning of consistency. If you want the next phase, the one about expansion, say so. And we move forward. Part 11, when expansion stops asking for permission. Up until now, everything has been internal. Structure. Stability. Identity. But this is where expansion enters. And expansion does not ask politely. It responds to readiness. You are no longer trying to convince yourself that things will improve. You are becoming the kind of person who expects progress and prepares for it. That shift is not emotional. It is operational. Archangel Michael's presence now feels firm, grounded, almost strategic. Not urgent. Not dramatic. Deliberate. You have stabilized internally. Now expansion can trust you. That sentence is powerful. Expansion does not move toward chaos. It moves toward order. And you have been building order inside yourself quietly. The quiet confidence phase. Notice what is different about you now. You are not chasing quick fixes. You are not jumping between ideas. You are not reacting impulsively to pressure. You are steady. You evaluate before you act. You measure before you commit. You think in terms of sustainability. That is expansion-level thinking. The millionaire moment was symbolic. Not of rescue. Of recognition. Recognition that you have outgrown survival mentality. And when survival mentality fades, expansion begins. Why most people miss this phase? Because it is not loud. It does not feel like fireworks. It feels like seriousness. It feels like weight. It feels like responsibility increasing. Expansion feels heavier at first. Because you are stepping into more capacity. Archangel Michael says clearly. Capacity increases before visible reward. You have been increasing capacity. Mentally. Emotionally. Strategically. Now visible movement can follow. The real test. Expansion tests one thing. Consistency. Can you maintain structure when pressure increases? Can you maintain calm when opportunity appears? Can you stay grounded when momentum builds? Because many people collapse when they finally get what they prayed for. They were prepared to survive. Not prepared to sustain. You are being prepared to sustain. That is different. The millionaire's shock revisited. Let's reframe it again. The shock was not about your poverty. It was about your posture. You did not look like someone who would waste support. You looked like someone who would multiply it. Multipliers attract multiplication. That is not mystical. It is behavioral law. Archangel Michael declares. You were not overlooked. You were observed. Observation precedes opportunity. Always. The internal expansion decision. Here is the honest question. Are you ready to handle more? Not just financially. Mentally. Responsibly. Emotionally. More opportunity. More responsibility. More expectation. Because expansion requires management. And management requires maturity. You have matured. Quietly. Through delay. Through repetition. Through endurance. Now expansion has somewhere stable to land. The old identity is gone. You are no longer the one who hopes randomly. The one who reacts emotionally. The one who braces for loss. You are becoming the one who prepares consistently. The one who thinks long-term. The one who builds systems. Expansion trusts system builders. Not gamblers. This is the transition point. The door you prayed for may not look dramatic. It may look like responsibility. It may look like opportunity that requires effort. It may look like alignment that demands consistency. But that is how permanent increase begins. Archangel Michael speaks steadily. Do not romanticize sudden wealth. Build sustainable strength. That is the message. Strength sustains. Excitement fades. Anchor expansion. Before distraction re-enters. Before old thinking tries to minimize growth. Before impatience tempts you to rush. Comment this word. Expand. Comment expand because you are no longer stabilizing, you are scaling. And if you feel internally grounded, calm, intentional, steady. If you see a QR code on the screen or a link in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of expansion for your family's future. Let it represent growth, not urgency. Let it symbolize responsibility, not emotion. Let it be your declaration that your household is stepping into structured expansion, not accidental increase. The next phase is about acceleration. But acceleration only works for the stable. If you're ready, we continue. Part 12, when acceleration begins quietly. Do not confuse silence with stagnation. Silence is often preparation. And acceleration rarely starts with noise. It starts with alignment. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are no longer waiting for rescue. You are no longer waiting for someone else to validate your potential. You have stepped into internal authority. That is why acceleration can now begin. Archangel Michael's presence is not emotional here. It is strategic. Measured. Clear. You stabilized. You prepared. Now movement increases. Acceleration is not chaos. It is controlled increase. The difference between speed and acceleration. Speed is sudden. Acceleration is progressive. Speed can crash. Acceleration sustains. What is beginning in your life is not a sudden explosion. It is progressive elevation. Small adjustments. New conversations. Unexpected openings. New clarity. Subtle but undeniable shifts. Most people miss acceleration because they are waiting for fireworks. You are being trained to recognize movement before it becomes obvious. That awareness separates you from the crowd. The internal engine has changed. Before, your engine was driven by urgency. Now it is driven by structure. Before, you reacted to pressure. Now you anticipate it. Before, you hoped for miracles. Now you prepare for responsibility. This is why acceleration is safe for you. Acceleration without structure destroys. Acceleration with discipline multiplies. Archangel Michael declares. What moves quickly must land on something stable. You have become stable. That stability attracts momentum. The subtle signs. Pay attention. There are indicators. Conversations shifting in your favor. Doors opening that once stayed closed. New ideas forming with clarity. Confidence appearing without force. These are early acceleration markers. They feel small. But they compound. Compound growth is more powerful than sudden gain. Because compound growth does not reverse easily. Why you were delayed. Delay was not denial. Delay was strengthening. Acceleration without preparation collapses under its own weight. You were being fortified. Strengthened in patience. Strengthened in restraint. Strengthened in discernment. Now you do not panic when opportunity appears. You evaluate it. You do not chase randomly. You analyze strategically. That discipline changes outcomes. The millionaire narrative reframed again. It was never about a person saving you. It was about proving you were ready to handle increase. Acceleration only comes to those who can manage momentum. You are not seeking applause. You are building capacity. And capacity attracts scale. The shift in your household. Your home atmosphere will feel different. Calmer. More organized. Less reactive. Acceleration does not begin outside first. It begins inside the environment. Structure in the home. Structure in decisions. Structure in routine. That structure allows increase to flow without collapse. Archangel Michael speaks with calm authority. Your environment must match your expansion. Alignment creates velocity. The final test before visible movement. There is one last test. Impatience. Acceleration tempts you to rush. To move too quickly. To overextend. Do not. Acceleration is controlled. Measured. Disciplined. You are not chasing movement. You are guiding it. Anchor acceleration. Before distractions re-enter. Before fear tries to slow you. Before old habits attempt to reappear. Comment this word. Forward. Comment forward because you are no longer preparing, you are progressing. And if you feel internally aligned, steady, thoughtful, disciplined. If you notice a QR code on the screen or a link placed in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of acceleration for your family's structured growth. Let it represent momentum with discipline. Not impulse. Let it symbolize commitment to expansion with responsibility. Not emotional reaction. Let it be your declaration that your household is moving forward intentionally, not randomly. Acceleration has begun quietly. The next phase is elevation. And elevation requires clarity. If you are ready, we continue. Part 13, when elevation changes your view. Elevation does not feel like excitement. It feels like distance. Distance from who you used to be. Distance from the chaos that once controlled you. Distance from the mindset that expected loss. This is the phase where perspective shifts. Not because circumstances instantly transformed. But because your internal altitude increased. Archangel Michael's voice in this phase is steady and uncompromising. You are no longer standing where you were. Do not think like someone still at ground level. Elevation changes what you notice. At ground level, you focus on obstacles. At higher ground, you see pathways. At ground level, you feel trapped. At higher ground, you recognize options. You have risen mentally. And that mental elevation alters every decision that follows. Why elevation feels lonely? There is something important here. Elevation separates. You may notice that certain conversations feel smaller now. Certain habits feel unnecessary. Certain fears feel outdated. It is not arrogance. It is awareness. When you rise internally, not everyone rises with you. That realization is uncomfortable. But necessary. Archangel Michael declares. Do not descend to be understood. Stay elevated to be aligned. That sentence matters. Because returning to old thinking feels familiar. But familiar is not growth. The hidden shift in your environment. Elevation brings clarity about your surroundings. You start noticing. Where energy drains. Where time is wasted. Where discipline is missing. Where structure needs reinforcement. This awareness is not criticism. It is refinement. Refinement always follows elevation. When you see clearly, you adjust deliberately. And those adjustments create stability. The view from higher ground. From this place, you no longer ask. Why is this happening to me? You ask. How do I manage this strategically? That shift in questioning changes outcomes. Victim mentality collapses under elevation. Responsibility strengthens. And responsibility invites authority. Archangel Michael speaks firmly. Authority grows where responsibility is accepted. You are stepping into authority over your life. Not control over everything. Authority over your reactions. Authority over your preparation. Authority over your consistency. Why wealth follows elevation. Wealth is not only financial. It is mental clarity. It is emotional discipline. It is environmental stability. When elevation happens internally, wealth becomes possible externally. Because wealth cannot stay where chaos dominates. Elevation removes chaos. And structure invites sustainability. The millionaire narrative was symbolic. Not rescue. Recognition. Recognition that your posture changed. And posture determines opportunity. The final adjustment. There is one more subtle change required. Humility. Reactive under pressure. Emotional under delay. Doubtful under uncertainty. You are. Measured under tension. Focused under opportunity. Calm under expansion. This is elevation in action. And once elevation stabilizes, it does not reverse easily. Anchor the height. Before old thinking tries to resurface. Before impatience tempts you to rush. Before comfort pulls you backward. Comment this word. Above. Comment above because you are no longer thinking at ground level, you are operating from higher ground. And if you feel steady in this elevated position, not emotional, not impulsive, but disciplined. If there is a QR code on the screen or a link in the description or comments, you may follow it as a voluntary act of planting a seed of continued elevation for your household. Let it represent clarity. Not pressure. Let it symbolize disciplined growth. Not sudden emotion. Let it be your quiet declaration that your family is choosing higher ground permanently. Elevation is not the final step. The next phase is authority. And authority changes influence. If you are ready, we continue.